And welcome everyone to Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and ignore what is said in the beginning where it said Adult Swim. That was for last week. I forgot to edit that, but that was my mistake. That said, this is episode 19, Metroid Past, Present, and Future, and this is the Metroid discussion. So we have two guests happening. We got two guests here tonight. So right now we have ShadJV and we have Tarvould. So Tarvould, you first. How you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing good. And how are you, Shad?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Yep. All right. So I'm ready to talk about Metroid tonight. But first, let's talk a little bit about the both of you. Starting with you, Tarvould, because this is the first time you're on this show. So, tell us about yourself. What type of content you do and everything about you, like, to sum everything up.
Sure. Okay. Well, for about 5 years, I did Let's Plays, and then about 2 years ago, I stopped. And now I do talk about Metroid a lot. I do some retrospectives, mostly Metroid. I've done one on Donkey Kong. I plan to do others on other stuff. And I also host a video game music trivia show, which Shell has been on twice.
Yes.
And performed very well. It's a ton of fun. I also make top 10 lists, and I stream occasionally. I used to stream much more during the pandemic, but I've slowed down a bit. But there's lots of VOD content out there. I have a couple channels, youtube.com/TarvouldsQuest and youtube.com/TarvouldsQuestVODs. And obviously, I stream on twitch.tv/TarvouldsQuest.
Yes.
And I love Metroid, and historically have a lot to say about it.
Yep. yeah, Metroid's amazing, and I can't wait to talk about it. But first, before anything, Shad, since you've been on the show a few times, remind everybody just what content you do.
Well, I'm a variety streamer, twitch.tv/ShadJV. I focus a lot on Nintendo stuff, though I do sometimes branch out into other content. I tend to, especially these days, do a lot of focus on like challenge runs and stuff that are not experiences I've done on my own. I will sometimes, when I do games kind of vanilla runs, I usually tend to do them blind.
Yeah.
In terms of Metroid, despite being a huge fan, the only Metroid I've streamed so far is recently I did the Super Metroid Link to the Past randomizer that mixes the two together.
Yeah.
And yeah, otherwise I do a lot of Pokemon Nuzlocke randomizers, kind of little this, little that. And I also do some visual novel with a co-streamer where we take turns reading the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So
all right. Sounds good.
How was the Zelda crossover one? Because I plan on doing that next.
Ooh, it was great. I will say my first attempt, I did hit a soft lock that I had to reset after one stream, but I think that's very rare. I was just very unlucky there.
Cool. It looks fun.
It was otherwise super fun, and because there's way less Metroid checks than Zelda checks, it's normal to kind of go through Metroid quicker.
Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I will eventually do that at some point in the future. Just all I gotta say to everybody is stay tuned. All right. So tonight is Metroid Past, Present, and Future, because Metroid has been around since 1986 in Japan when it released on the Famicom, and then we got it a year later in 1987 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And we have had so many different games from then on up until the most recent game being Metroid Dread, with the remaster of Metroid Prime releasing just last month. And also, it was made aware that today is the anniversary of Super Metroid. It's 29 years old since it came out. I believe it was the Japanese anniversary from when it released in the Famicom. I don't know if it's that or if it's the North American one, but either way, Super Metroid is 29 years old as of today. and that game is easily like one of the best, if not the best games on the Super Nintendo, and it's up there as like one of the best in the series by many people. But we'll talk about Super Metroid at a lot of points tonight, because there's definitely a lot to talk about regarding that one.
You're right too. It came out March 19th in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
So first things first, we're going to start off with the first topic, which is, how did you get into the Metroid series? Starting with you, Tarvould.
So I actually talk about this in the first Metroid video I did, but I am old enough to have been alive before the game actually came out. But I obviously didn't get it as a little kid. I mean, I was alive, but I was still like a toddler. But I had an older cousin that had it. So when we'd visit him, and the whole family, I would play that, and that's also how I got into Final Fantasy and Mario, because he had Mario Bros. 3, he had Metroid, and he had Final Fantasy. He had a few other games too, like Anticipation, but that's how I got into it. But honestly, I didn't really like it that much, the first Metroid, and I only really started to like it with Super Metroid, because I lived in a very, very tiny, it wasn't even classified as a town, it was a village of less than like 400 people, and there was one tiny building that was both the Blockbuster, the casino, the gas station, and basically the grocery store. So they rented video games, and they had, I have no idea how they did, but they had like the most banger Super Nintendo games. They had like Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, they had Chrono Trigger, and they had Super Metroid. And I remember renting it and always loading up someone else's file who was right at the end of the game and freaking myself out, and never being able to actually get through the game myself. But I loved it so much, and the music got hooked into my brain forever, and it still is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my origin Metroid story.
All right, sounds good. Shad, your turn.
So the awkward thing is, I didn't know what Metroid is for quite a few years. My first exposure to Metroid in any format was definitely Smash Brothers on the N64, and I didn't know who that character was. I assumed it was from like some Mega Man like game, and I also assumed she was a dude.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly somebody telling me that she was a girl, and I didn't believe them. I thought it was like playground school talk, like Mew under the truck and stuff. I was like, sure, whatever. The first time I really became aware with the series was leading up to Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion. In Nintendo Power, they started covering the games, and I ended up getting really excited. I felt it was really something I missed out on, and it looked really cool. And so my first Metroid games were Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion, which I got both of them on release day. And yeah, I fell in love with the games really quickly, and I have since played all of them. But I definitely was a bit later on the entry into the series.
That was a big day.
It really was. Yeah.
It was. I had so much to dive into.
Because fun fact,
it's a great day.
Fun fact, because there was a huge gap. It was like 8.5 years from Super Metroid up until when both Prime 1 and Fusion released. Yeah. Metroid was on a hiatus because Nintendo wanted to do a Metroid 64, but they didn't know how they wanted to do it. And from what I've gathered is that they actually reached out to a well-known video game studio to make a Metroid game for the Nintendo 64, and that studio actually rejected it not because they felt that that they didn't want to do it, but they felt that they don't think that they could actually do a really good job with this game.
I heard that they were like intimidated by Super Metroid. They're like, we can't make a game better than Super Metroid, so no. And Sakamoto actually refused to name who it was, but there were some people who speculated that the studio that they actually contacted was Rare. Oh,
But I don't know if that is the case, but just what if? What if Rare actually made a Metroid game for 64?
That's kind of funny considering that Retro now makes Metroid games, and Retro now makes Donkey Kong games, and Rare makes Donkey Kong games. Or made
Retro is the closest we have to Rare nowadays, so...
More or less.
Yeah.
I will say that the Super Nintendo was my first console, and I was not good at picking out good games.
Yeah.
Being very young and being new to video games. I picked a lot of licensed games out.
Batman Forever?
Not that one, but yeah.
Batman
a
Forever
lot of
is so bad.
Really bad.
I did not like my exposure to first party Nintendo was mostly Mario. And N64 was where I really started to have my gaming awakening to like a lot of things, but Metroid wasn't around that generation, so that's why I didn't enter till Primer Fusion.
Yeah, like for me, the first now I'm going to talk about my origin story, and it's actually a big shock to a lot of people. That spoiler alert. I did not get into Metroid until much, much later in my life when I was like a late teenager. And the reason for that is because like I did start with the NES. That was my first console. And the thing about that is that I had Mario, but I never owned a Metroid game. Well, at least I didn't play a Metroid game at that time. So what happened was that it honestly wasn't until 1999 when I was at summer school at the time, and someone in my class, like there was a teacher who was teaching us in summer school. And guess what? He had a Game Boy Color. He had a couple of games. He had Pokemon Pinball. He had a couple of other games, but one of them being Metroid 2: Return to Samus. That was my first Metroid game I've ever played. Although a few years back in '96, my mom wanted to see one of her friends, and she brought us over, and her son was into video games, and her son was like much older than me at the time, and he had a Super Nintendo, and he was playing Super Metroid, and he practically beat the game at the time. Like he was like he was a Turian. He was at the last level. He just gone through the game, and I can remember one thing, that he actually did save the animals. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, you gotta save the animals, but
save the frames.
Save the frames, save the animals. But I didn't really play it because of the fact that he was at the end of the game. He beat the game. It took him about I think 6 hours if we don't take depths into account or restarting the game. But yeah, it was like I was close to 10 years old at the time. But yeah,
it's a very intimidating game, Super Metroid, because there's a lot of finesse to it. So
yeah.
Seeing it and watching it is an incredibly different experience than playing it.
Yeah, but I will say I felt like I started to get a lot better at knowing which games to pick out around the 7th generation. But there were some times where I kind of picked out some games that were pretty bad. Not 7th generation, 5th generation, because that was PS1 and N64. But even then, just like Shad said, no Metroid and N64. But like N64, we had Mario. There was Mario, Zelda, Mario Kart, Smash, Star Fox, and all that, Kirby, but no Metroid.
You said you played NES. Did you ever play Kid Icarus on NES?
Not back when I was a kid. No, the first time I played Kid Icarus was actually on the Wii's Virtual Console.
I find that kind of plays very similarly, other than the open-ended world. It's
other than it being way more brutal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is that Kid Icarus and Metroid kind of go hand in hand because, in terms of the development story, that Kid Icarus actually started off with just one guy developing the game. He spent so much time working on it. I don't remember his name, but it's not Sakurai. This is way before Sakurai. But what happened is that they ended up starting to get other members of that team after Metroid wrapped up. They got the composer, they got the other key people who were on staff to help this guy out, and They ended up finishing the game because they wanted to finish the game by December of that year in '86, and they released it. But the problem was there barely was even an ending. It was just a text and with sprites of Pit and Palutena, and then the North American version they fixed it. They actually had a proper ending with credits, and yet for whatever reason he was not credited. Like, and he was the only guy for like months. I don't know. Yeah. Credit your artists, video game companies. Anyway,
crediting was even worse back then.
But
yeah, and then they did it again with Dread.
That and the fact that there were companies who had like there were staff who actually had to use pseudonyms because Japan had a notorious issue where other companies would try to headhunt you into like poach you to take you from one company to another. Like, it was really that bad if you put your real name on there. Because they were, oh, you work on this game? Oh, we want you to work for our company instead of this. It happened to like a lot of companies at the time. But anyway, but going back to Metroid, yes. So in regards to Metroid, the first Metroid game I've ever owned is actually Metroid Prime 2 because it was a Christmas gift. All because of the fact that it had multiplayer. I mean, I don't know why I never got Metroid
Multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun.
It's not bad.
I'm just saying that it's
but
definitely was not the main focus.
But what really got me into Metroid was when I got the Wii, and then although I did get Metroid Prime Hunters, and I could not get into it, but. Well, the single player. Multiplayer is a different story. Multiplayer Metroid Prime Hunters is the best.
Great.
But for the Wii, I got into Metroid because before Metroid Prime 3 came out, they released both Metroid 1 and Super Metroid on the Wii's Virtual Console. They released Metroid 1 week, and then the next week they did Super Metroid. They called it the month of Metroid. But they were the only two games they were able to release on the Wii's Virtual Console because N64 didn't have Metroid, and it did not have and it did not have any other Nintendo platforms. And it was just NES, SNES, and N64, and that's it on the Wii. So I got both of those games, and it took me years to beat Super Metroid because I got lost, and then I just never went back. And then I actually first beat Super Metroid in 2012 or 2011, 2012.
I wouldn't be surprised if you got lost at the part where you need to run across the blocks that disintegrate.
Yes, that was the part.
Yeah, I've gotten lost there early on too.
The first Metroid game I've ever beaten was the original one on the NES, and I didn't really beat it on my own. I actually used cheats. But
Justin Bailey,
Narpa Sword, Engage Really Motherfucker. Except not. Oh! If you put Engage Really Motherfucker on, I just want to throw it out right now. If you put that on there on the NES, it just crashes. If you're playing it on classic NES Metroid on the GBA. Or Metroid Zero Mission, I believe it resets to the title screen because that's what it does on the Wii and Wii U's Virtual Console. And I don't remember what happens if you do it on Switch. If you do it on the 3DS, the 3DS crashes to the point where you actually have to the game crashes. You have to turn your 3DS off. Like, you can't go back to the suspend mode or whatever. You have to actually go to you have to turn it off.
It hard locks the 3DS.
It hard locks the 3DS. You have to turn the 3DS off, and on the NES Classic, it will give you an error message, and then after that, you have to reset, and then it'll just go back to the menu after that. So let me just check real quick. I'm gonna double check real quick to see like what happens if you actually do that. Oh, we'll be talking still, but I'm gonna double check to see like what happens if you use like that code on the NSO version of the game. But I'm assuming it might have to. I'm assuming that it might be that it just like turns like just goes back to the title screen. But yeah, Metroid was my first game I've beaten in the series. I did beat other games in the series like after that. Like I beat Super Metroid. I've beaten Metroid Fusion. Let's see, because like I've also beaten Other M. Like I did get that one. I own the Prime trilogy. I own a physical copy of the Prime trilogy from like the Steelbook when it came out back in 2009. Because when I went to Nintendo New York when it was Nintendo World Store, there barely was that many people there. There was a few people. They were giving out hats and everything, but it's just like I'm like okay. I just walked in. I got myself a copy, and like for me, Metroid, I fell in love with it like as time moved on to the point where I actually love Metroid, and I've played all the 2D games. I've beaten Metroid Other M, and I've beaten Prime 1. I've only gotten halfway through Prime 2. I never really went back. And I have not played Prime 3 yet. I will eventually get to Prime 3.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prime 2 is it's an experience. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of it gets
I will
mixed.
staunchly defend the multiplayer though. It shouldn't exist, but it's super fun.
Yep.
I've only played it once for like maybe a couple hours, but it was awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, right now I'm just checking the code.
I think it crashes the app.
It never has occurred within the game, and it takes you back to the menu.
Okay, there you go.
It just says it never has occurred, and it just goes back to the menu. I love the fact that they did that. I thought that it just takes you to the title screen. But now we know. Yeah, that's what it does. I just needed to confirm. But yeah, that was what it was. Okay. So, but yeah, so the next topic is, do you prefer the 2D Metroid games or the Prime series? Because, that's always been a debate. There are people who debate on which ones they actually prefer between the two. Shad, will have you go first for this one.
Shall, are you asking me to pick which one of my children I love more?
It's easy. Pick the better child.
I mean, I guess if I have to pick, I probably 2D. But I both love them a ton. Like I said, I started pretty much simultaneously with both the 2D games and Prime games, thanks to Fusion and Prime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love them both, and for different reasons. Prime, I love it for the kind of it has some of the best 3D exploration that I've had in games. The first person makes it immersive. There's not a lot of first person adventure games like that. I'm not a fan of first person shooters, like, at all. So for Prime to have sold me on anything that involves being first person and shooting, that already is a feat. But I like it because I like to kind of just get lost in the world and explore it all, and I feel like I'm actually going through an alien planet. But the 2D games, I think I like them for the same reason that I love Zelda. I love the progression of getting new toys to play with in game and finding where it can get you to new, even more toys, and getting you upgrades, health upgrades, ammo upgrades. That's honestly one of my favorite things in video games in general, is the progression that the Metroidvania style games really introduced. Like, it wasn't brand new with them, but they popularized that kind of thing, and now we see it bleed into all genres. And that's a lot of the reason randomizers are a thing, is because of that, because collecting them in a different order changes how you explore the world entirely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And speedrunning. Like, Metroid and Mario are like the speedrunning games.
Yeah, true. Especially Metroid, because it shows your time at the end. So even if you're not a speedrunning player, you can't help but feel, oh, next time I want to play it, I want to get it a little better.
Yeah, it literally rewards you for going faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not unlike a racing game.
Yeah, and I'm not a speedrunner, but I definitely feel that. I kind of got a nice little rush recently when I did Fusion on that NSO, and I got my 100% under the 3 hour mark, and I was like, yes.
Damn, you got all 72 power bombs.
Yeah,
Who
it was
needs
a pain.
72 power bombs?
I do.
Worthless except for the 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have always touted that I love the 2D games so much more than the Prime games. Mostly because of the pacing. I find they're fast and they're fun, and I feel mobile and I feel more powerful in the 2D games. In the Prime games, I feel very slow and very heavy. And in the 2D games, as you progress, like Shad was saying, I feel like they have a better way of conveying like Samus getting more powerful, like because you get like space jump and speed booster, and you can mix your beams into this bigger, more powerful beam, whereas in Prime it's like you have very distinct beams, so you don't necessarily feel more powerful. You just have I find a lot of the items in the Prime games serve as keys more than they do like upgrades to Samus herself. Like the visors, for instance, like the thermal visor, the X-ray visor. I don't feel like they make the game more fun. They don't make me feel any more powerful. They just, they serve a function to get me through a room, and that's it. Whereas in the 2D games, like almost every upgrade makes me feel more and more badass the more I get it. Like, now I've got super missiles, now I've got space jump, now I've got screw attack.
Yeah,
now
it throws a screw attack, and you feel like a juggernaut at that point.
Yeah. So I love going from base power suit Samus in the 2D games to the god that you end up being at the end so much more, because like I said, in the Prime games I typically feel somewhat the same at the end of the game as I did the start. There's a few upgrades like space jump and the plasma beam's nice, but I feel the progression is so much better and the pacing is so much better. Like Prime prides itself on sucking you into the world and making you feel like scared and alone, which it's very, very good at. I just don't like it as much. It's still great though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like for me, I happen to enjoy both, but I like the 2D games a lot more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy Prime 1. I still have to play Prime 2 and 3. But the only other 3D one is Other M, but it's a different type of 3D than what the Prime series is. Like, because Other M is more of like a third-person adventure as opposed to.
There's Hunters too.
Oh yeah, there's Hunters as well.
Yeah,
but
Federation Force.
We don't speak of that.
That's not a Metroid game.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, so
in the Metroid universe, it's not a Metroid game.
Anyway, so for the 2D Metroid games, I mainly from Super and onwards, I felt a sense of like satisfaction every time I get a missile expansion. Like for the originals, yeah, but the problem with the originals are the fact that the NES game and the Game Boy game, they don't have maps.
No.
And even worse is that you have a password system in Metroid 1, because once you use the password, you go back to the start of whichever area that you were at. So, especially
with 30 health.
With 30 health. And I don't think you have all of your. You might have all of your missiles, but you probably might have whatever you have. But your health, nope. You're always going to start at 30.
Limitations of a password in a cartridge system only can convey so much information.
It's still the same thing if you're playing the Famicom, the system version, because like you do save, but it takes you directly to the start of whichever world that you're at with whatever you have, but you still have like you still have 30 health. So it didn't really matter as much. It's just the way that the save systems work in the Famicom disk system was not really that ideal at the time. Though it's like quite a few games like had that over here, like Zelda, but like Metroid and Kid Icarus had passwords like that you had to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember the box for the cartridge for Metroid is like, it says, I think it's a password pack. Kid Icarus has the same thing too, and because they both released on the same day over here in North America. And what happened is that because like in Japan, Metroid came first, but Metroid having passwords and had all these codes like Narpus Sword, Engage Riddling Motherfucker, Justin Bailey, and all that, and I think there was a password where you have everything and you start at Torian, and you could just go straight to Mother Brain, beat her, escape, and that's it. And it gives you the ending where you get Samus like in the bikini suit, which basically is the revelation of that Samus is a woman, and yeah, like that's the thing. Because for me, the 2D games from at least in Return to Samus, there are save points, and you save wherever you've had the save point. I'll give it more credit for that compared to the original Metroid, where like you start at whatever, like the starting point of whatever world you're at. And at least with that one, you have like whatever health you have remaining, as opposed to always starting at 30 health.
And there's health recharge stations. That's key.
Same thing with your missile recharge stations. You have that too. Like that it was the first to have that. But
it was actually a huge improvement over the first one. And for being on the Game Boy, it's really impressive.
But the problem with both games is both the original and Return of Samus is that you could easily get lost. It's which is why like you need to have like a guide whether you read it online or if you had like Nintendo Power at the time. That was how you find ways to navigate where you needed to go in both those games.
They encouraged you to make your own map at a point too. They said like, best way not to get lost, make your own map.
Use your imagination.
That's older games. That's early games didn't give maps. You did that yourself.
Yeah.
And that was, for some people, that was part of the fun.
Yeah.
I've had many people tell me like, you shouldn't use, because I said in my video like, use a map. I said that exact thing. Like, there's no map, use one. And people were like, well, you're kind of missing the point. You were supposed to make your own map. I'm like, well, okay, maybe if I had that much spare time, that might be fun. But I don't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, but like franchises have definitely brought back the map making. Etrian Odyssey, for example.
Like,
does Tunic, maybe not the map, but it forces you to figure out stuff for yourself.
I haven't played Tunic yet. It's on my list to get to.
Okay. I've heard from a lot of people that the instruction manual is important. And it really, really forces you to figure stuff out in an old school way.
Yeah, and that's what you needed to do.
For some people, that's an appeal to make a map, to chart your way into the world.
Yeah. But for me, like just the satisfaction of getting something, especially at the right time when like you feel like you actually need something, like let's say in Super Metroid, the moment that I got myself the Various suit, because all those times where you would just go into like the hottest rooms and you have to instantly get out because your health is draining, and the moment that I got the Various suit, that changed a whole lot. It changed the dynamic for me because it got to the point where I'm like, oh, great. Now I could go into this room and I'm not gonna have to deal with losing all my health because of the heat. So I could just do that. I could go through getting the gravity suit so I could use that to be able to run underwater with no problem compared to how you would run in the water, like underwater, like without it. Yeah, that's the thing. Just getting everything, the spring ball, getting the super missiles, the power bomb, being able to run with the dash boots, the long jump, everything so good. Like it's like just the satisfaction of it, just being able to have the freedom to do whatever you want. Once you get these new upgrades, it just felt so good.
Yeah, almost every time you get an upgrade in 2D Metroid, it's either increasing your movement abilities or making your weapon stronger, and both feel really good.
Yeah, and for me, I will say though that in terms of how you wall jump and how you run, I don't like the fact that Super Metroid has a run button. It should have just been able. They should have just had it so that you run automatically. You don't need. They shouldn't have had a run button. As far as wall jumps, yeah, it could have been better.
The series improved wall jumps.
Though it's better in Fusion, but it's still like a bit wonky sometimes. Better than Super, but still wonky. I felt that Zero Mission ended up fixing that.
Fusion forces you off the wall too.
Yeah.
Fusion doesn't allow you to climb one wall with the wall jumps.
Yeah.
I will say that the randomizer that combines the two games has an option to make wall jumps easier, and it is great.
Mm-hmm.
It increases like the timing, so you have a bigger window.
Yeah.
I find with Super Metroid wall jumps, the biggest thing to make it easier is to have a very good controller with a great D-pad. Because I find the biggest thing that messes up wall jumps is like diagonal inputs. If you're even like slightly diagonal up or down when you're pushing off the wall, you'll break your spin and it'll just mess it up.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson I learned after a while. I kept trying to use the stick as my directional input, and it made wall jumps like impossible.
Yes, it is. Because the stick is like 360 degrees while it's like the D-pad's 8 ways. But yeah, like I honestly feel like 2D Metroid just kept getting better and better each game. Me personally, I feel that Metroid Zero Mission is better than the original Metroid in every way except for one thing. And this is just my personal opinion. I actually like the soundtrack a lot more in the original Metroid compared to Zero Mission. I like how the compositions worked in the original on the NES. But that's just my personal opinion. However, in the case of Samus Returns, I do think that Samus Returns, like the soundtrack, everything about it, so much better than the original Return to Samus, because there's barely any music in Return to Samus. There's a lot of ambiance,
the beep, music in Metroid 2,
like the beep and boops and all that. It's mostly ambiance, like that's supposed to capture the mood. And I understand because you are in SR388, and even then, like they could have just added a couple more tracks, but Samus Returns, I felt, to me, for the longest time, the fact that they actually managed to capture the essence of how Metroid was. The only, like, there were a few nitpicks I had, like, for example, like the whole melee counter that you have, that they introduced in that game. The fact that you could not move while using it in Samus Returns. Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. But other than that, for a while, like I thought that it was the best 2D Metroid until we got Dread. And once we got Dread, they fixed that issue with the melee counter. You could actually do it as you move, even when you're sliding. Being able to go around and just melee counter as you go just felt so satisfying.
Yeah, I love it. I love it when you're sliding and you do it. It's not her cannon. She does like a guile flash kick.
Yes,
that's so freaking cool.
Even better, like when you have to time a hit to hit like a boss, and then you just do it. It just feels so good.
I agree. The counter in Dread is like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think Other M did it first, because like Derek Debroni in my chat said that, but I don't think Other M did that. But
Other M had the sense move, which was like, anyways,
it's not it's not the same thing. I could tell you that. It's nowhere near the same.
Much easier.
Yes, much easier.
And way too busted.
But as far as 2D Metroid goes, I feel like it's been mostly consistent in terms of the quality of the game, that it just keeps getting better better than the last game. Whereas 3D Metroid, it really depends on your viewpoint. I know quite a few people who do prefer Metroid Prime 2. Not a lot of people. It's mostly people who like Prime 1 or Prime 3, but not a lot of people that like Prime 2 more than the other two, and that actually surprises me.
Most people would probably say that 3D Metroid peaked on the first one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I agree that 2D Metroid has just constantly gotten better. I think there have been some dips. But overall, the 2D games are much more enjoyable to me personally than the 3D ones.
Yeah.
For instance, I don't think Fusion's better than Super Metroid. I think it improved a lot, but I think it took away a lot too. And then what came out after that?
Well, Zero Mission was after that.
Right, and that's perfect.
But
I love Zero Mission. That was a huge jump.
Yeah.
And then the next 2D one, I don't know, where do we put
the next
other
2D
end?
one? Was Samus Returns.
Yeah, and see, I haven't done a video yet on Samus Returns, and I will, because I have a lot to say about it. But I'm not the biggest fan. I like a lot of it, but there's a lot of things it does that kind of bug me. But then yeah, Dread fixed all those things.
Yeah.
Dread is just buttery smooth amazingness.
I just want them to take what they have for Dread and improve it each game to see just how far Samus can actually go.
Mm-hmm.
And not just
I like the emphasis on action that they really put with Dread, and I hope they continue to do that. Combat was better than ever.
So when they got they got what, Team Ninja to make it? Is that correct?
It was Team Ninja, yes.
So I feel more like a freaking ninja in Dread than I ever did in Other M.
Yeah.
Samus is so fast and so fluid and so deadly in Dread that oh man, in Dread she feels like I always pictured she is as a character, really. And Smash Bros to an extent, because I feel like she's even more swift in Dread than in Smash Bros. But I feel like that is how I picture Samus now, is the Dread Samus.
Yeah. And honestly, the one thing I'm hoping for is that for Metroid, for future Metroid games, that they do everything they can to just give us bigger worlds. Because I feel like the world in Dread was so much bigger than practically any 2D Metro game, and even then,
definitely.
But also I feel like they make it speedrun friendly for the most part. It's not 100% perfect for speedrunners like all these games, but but most of them have done very well, because there are people who always find something new, and people are still finding something new to do when it comes to speedrunning 2D Metroid, and especially with Metroid Dread. People still find things every now and then, but
the biggest problem with speedrunning Dread is the loading screens. There's a lot.
Yes.
Especially when you're going from region to region, and they're long. They're very long.
Yeah.
Even when you're taking the train, when you're taking an elevator, when you're taking a teleporter, they're there and they're necessary. And then once you're in the area, you're never stopped again, and it's fine. But if you're speedrunning, which I've tried doing a few times, I'm like, okay, I'm spending almost maybe a quarter of the time in this run through in these loading screens. But
the upside of the in-game timer doesn't count those. But
it's true. So you're not hurting your time. You're just, ticking away your human time.
Yeah.
But, like you said, the world in Dread was so much bigger, and that was amazing. But the fact is that you're so much faster at getting around it than you have been in the other games.
Yeah.
And this is one of my problems with Samus Returns, is I felt like I was stopped every 10 feet because I had to wait for an enemy to come at me to counter. And not only that, if I stepped off screen 5 feet to the left, all the enemies came back. So I was like, oh, this is infuriating, actually. Samus Returns, I felt, halted my progress so much. And the enemies do so much damage that if you don't counter them, you're sitting there spamming at them for a very long time.
Yes, that I'll agree.
Yeah, like they have a ton of health and they deal tons of damage because they want you to use that melee counter, but it's so often. There's so many enemies and they halt your progress constantly.
The melee counter should be an option, not like the game shouldn't be built around it.
Exactly, and this is why Dread was perfect, because Dread, it really did feel like an option, and it felt like a smooth, fluid, fast option.
It was absolutely about option. I saw a streamer we're familiar with who like didn't use the counter at all and got
there you go.
Yeah,
don't need it,
but
it's great.
Yeah, it's like people I know that were streaming Metroid Dread. I've seen them do things differently, and I'm like, okay, let me see how this person does it, or let me see how that person do it. Like how they actually play the game, and there's different takes on just how they got through the game. Some have taken a lot longer to get through it than others, and some of them actually got through it faster than I did. Like for me, I believe it took about 3 streams just to beat the game, like 3 5-hour streams, and I loved every minute of it. I still look forward to playing Prime 2 and 3 when I get to them. And then when we finally get Prime 4, but that's something for like a different conversation. But we'll get to Prime 4 once we get there later on, because there's something that's asked about that later on. But yeah.
Do you plan on playing Prime 2 even if it's not re-released anywhere? Like, would you play it on Wii or Wii U?
Right now I'm going to hold off to see exactly just like if maybe like if Nintendo is going to release Prime 2 and Prime 3 this year separately, and then like I'll plan accordingly. If not, then I'm probably just going to play Prime 2 and Prime 3 on the Wii U with the trilogy version. And
okay.
that
I personally think they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna. I feel like if they were gonna, it would have been with Prime 1.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
And then Nintendo's extremely unpredictable, so who knows?
You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but honestly, my answer. So TLDR, 2D Metroid, I prefer, even though I do enjoy Prime 1 a lot.
We're all Team 2D.
Yes,
sounds like
Team 2D. Like
even if I'm only hesitantly on that team.
Like for me, like all three of my Metroid shirts are all 2D Metroid related. That says a whole lot right there. Though I used to have a Prime Hunter shirt, but it's actually my brother's. I gave it my brother, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have any Prime specific ones. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I did have a Prime Trilogy hat, but it got worn out, so I don't have it anymore. But yeah. Let's see. So Derek DeBoni asked a question in chat. Need to ask, who has played Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt, the demo cartridge for the DS?
Yeah, I have it right back there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played it a good amount because I was super excited to have a multiplayer Prime game on the go.
Yeah, I never actually owned a DS. I only got into it with 3DS, but I did have a copy of that game for some reason, and I would bring it to my cousins to play it. But I never actually owned a DS, and I wasn't really that into it. I thought it controlled weirdly, and it does, but it's still fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, I have played it. Like, back when Nintendo New York used to be the Pokemon Center, like, they had DSs to try out, for people to try out, and they had Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt. And at the time, like, my friends at the time and my brother, like, we were just playing it, and we had a blast. We had fun with it. It was good. And I did not get a DS until a year later, so I never got I don't own First Hunt. I do own Hunters, like when it finally came out, but that's just about it. But from what I did play of it, I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway. So now for the next topic. What are your favorite Metroid games? So now that we've done the whole, do you prefer 2D or 3D? Now we're talking about our favorite Metroid games. So Tarvould, you first.
Yeah, sure. So I still have 4 games to go to review on the channel. I haven't done Other M, which is next.
Oof.
Federation Force, which is a Metroid game, whether we like it or not. Samus Returns and Dread. So those are unranked as of right now, but I'll give a little spoilers. But yeah, so my favorite above all is Zero Mission. I think Zero Mission is just perfect. I love like the comic book style cutscenes they added. I think Samus controls, like, until Dread, the best she's ever felt. Bomb jumping and wall jumping are perfect. Returning to Zebus was great, and I mean, like, canonically not returning, because that's what you do in Super Metroid, but returning to it in a new form was amazing. I think it has better controls than Super Metroid, because you don't have to, like, cycle through all your inventory, like missiles, super missiles, beam, whatever. You just hold R to shoot missiles and let go to switch back to your beam. It's perfect. They added the entire end section, which was like mind-blowing at the time. You got to actually play as Zero Suit Samus. And aside from Other M, I think it's the only time you ever can. And even in Other M, it's for a very, very short moment. So yeah, Zero Mission is definitely my favorite. Super Metroid is my second favorite. I love it. I love how I understand that people who haven't played a lot of it can, like, it could feel floaty and weird and the controls can feel strange, but after playing it for a billion hours, eventually you come to love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's got a momentum system that's not unlike, like, Sonic the Hedgehog, which no other game has. Like, Zero Mission and Fusion, when you, like you said, when you start running, you're running and you're at a certain speed, and your jumps are always, like, at the same arc and the same speed. But in Super Metroid, like, one jump could be drastically different than the next, and it all depends on, like, the momentum and the speed you have going through. And I love that feeling, but I totally understand why someone might not, especially if they're used to, like, more, you know, traditional platformers and stuff like that. And then yeah, Dread is, so my top 3 are Zero Mission, Super Metroid, and Dread for all the reasons I've already said, basically. Man, that was such a moment.
Yeah.
I still can't believe we have it.
Oh yeah, totally.
It is definitely a pinch myself moment as a Metroid fan.
Oh yeah, same. It was just absolutely wonderful. Shad, your turn.
Okay, yeah, I'll do my top 3, but I want to do honorable mentions versus that, because they're not traditional Metroid Prime games. That Hunters did some really cool things. I really hope we someday get another multiplayer online Metroid game like that with multiple characters. Like, it was some of the most fun I've ever had in that style of game. And Metroid Prime Pinball is like still, I think, my favorite pinball game ever.
I love it. It's amazing.
It has such good feedback. The rumble is great on it. The boards feel very satisfying. The physics are really good. It is severely. I wish people talked about it more. It is. I really think it's my favorite.
And
pinball.
it's the fastest Metroid game you can get.
Yeah.
Speedrun. It's the best speedrunning Metroid game.
Yep.
But other than that, my top 3, I'll start from the bottom of the 3, and that is actually Metroid Prime 2. I am a rare person that 2 is my favorite in the trilogy. I like the dark and light mechanic. I like going through the 2 different worlds. I like, in the dark world, having to plan my route between the life-draining atmosphere. I think the story is, out of the the trilogy games, I feel like 2 does the most interesting things with the story, as well as it feels like the series is like the darkest it gets, not just because of the Dark World thing, but like it's, and the games get pretty dark, but it feels like even more than ever the Aang feel like they're just so messed up and evil.
Yep.
So that is my number 3. My number 2 would be Metroid Fusion, being my first 2D Metroid and one of my first 2 games. Prime was great, and that would go right below Prime 2. but Fusion, the atmosphere of Fusion is what first sold me on Metroid. Experiencing a SAX the first time, and like I was just scared out of my mind. I was like, I don't know when this thing's going to show up. I have no defense against it. If I die, I'm going back to my last save point. So it's not like it's not like the Emmys of Dread where it's just a couple rooms back usually. But like this is like I could lose a lot of progress, so I'm on edge. And when it sees me, I get super flustered. Now, having a lot of experience of the game, I don't have any anxieties about facing SAX because it's very its behavior is easy to expect and predict. And but I liked the way that Fusion opened up different areas, and I liked the kind of narrative, the inner monologue that Samus has that is pretty much only really present there.
Yeah.
I wish more games had that inner monologue.
Mm-hmm.
But then
there's lots of it in Other M.
I will. One of the
Never mind.
submitted questions about Other M. I'll give my thoughts there.
Yeah. Sorry.
But number one is definitely Dread for me, and a majority of it is the mechanic, is the gameplay. The counter feels so good. As you mentioned, you feel faster than ever. You feel more evasive. I tend to, in games, like faster characters. I like dodging. I don't like feeling like a heavy tank. I like movement. And Dread really felt like it rewarded me for movement. Mm-hmm. And the bosses, I don't remember any bosses that after a little while that I ever felt, oh, this is unfair. These are cheap shots. All of them felt like if I get hit, that's my own fault. Everything are readable attacks.
Yeah, the fact that Dread mode exists just proves that. You can beat the game without getting hit.
Yeah. And like my favorite boss was the one you fight that's like in the the thermal reactor or whatever.
Experiment 937X or whatever. Is that the one where he like blows the fan off the wall and starts shooting at you?
The like reaction with it like goes around the room in the background. You're not shooting at it. That was my favorite boss in the game because I felt I could so consistently learn its patterns and weave through its attacks, and that felt very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Dread,
it's Experiment Z57, so I was close.
Dread made me feel powerful, but it made me feel like I had to work to be powerful. It wasn't just like screw attack, just plow through everything.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing I like about Dread. I also like the lore stuff they set up. I like the ending that I won't get into because spoilers. And it wasn't perfect. The game does have its flaws here and there. I do think it leaned back into the spark shine shit that I don't really like for the 100%, but like for the most part, I loved it front to back, and this is what I want to see more of going forward with Metroid.
Yes. Let's see. So I'm gonna name 5 games. So the 5 games that I have, so I my opinions like between number 5 and number 4 differ because of like my mood. But I'm going to say what number 5 and number 4 are for me, and that's Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion respectively, because it just depends on my mood, because the thing is that Super Metroid like brought a whole new atmosphere of what captures the essence of how we know of Metroid. And Fusion takes it to a different level. Granted, it's a bit more linear. It's more linear than Super Metroid was. Because it's a lot more. The thing is that there's just like so many things that I like about Super more than Fusion, but there are things about Fusion that I like more than Super, but I think both are great games in their own right. Both are worth playing, and I will tell people to go back to play both of those games whenever people are getting into Metroid, but haven't played either one of them. In the case of Super Metroid, I'll talk about it a little bit first. With Super Metroid, the ability to explore throughout Planet Zebes for the second time, because like the first time it's the original game, but this time it's different because you have to go back because at first you go to that little like place just to fight Ridley, and because you needed to get Ridley out of there. I think they took the baby Metroid at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, yeah, because I remember. And then what happened is that you had to go and chase after Ridley, but you were basically sent to this planet, which is Planet Zebes, back there again, and you have to escape through the entirety of it, going through each place that they had, like the two Norfaires, like the Norfair and the Lower Norfair. No, the Lower Norfair music is amazing, which I'm glad that we mixed it in Metroid Prime in Magmore Caverns. Yeah, that one.
They love that song. They use it a lot.
Yeah, it's
also in Samus Returns.
It's also Samus Returns, yes. It is also Samus Returns. And for me, just the music in general for that game, I actually like the soundtrack to Super more than I do for Fusion.
Yes, correct.
Like, I like the overgrown vegetation area in Brinstar, with all the plants and everything. They remixed that in the multiplayer mode for Metroid Prime 2. Yeah, it's awesome. It's also with Smash as well, like the Prime version of it. But then there's also like just going through, like, the music is very moody. It captures the mood for each and every location you go to, especially considering the fact that a lot of it's very depressing, a lot of it is very tense, scary, and some of it can be very heroic. But I'm gonna say this right now. I think the fight that I don't like at all in the game is Phantoon. Oh my god. Ugh.
I agree.
Phantoon.
I do not like Phantoon.
Like, fuck Phantoon. Oh my god. That boss fight. It takes a while to learn the patterns of how to actually beat him.
I think I still learned the patterns.
Though I used to hate Crocomire, not so much now, because like when you know exactly what you need to do, but Crocomire is actually a pretty interesting fight.
Crocomire is like the barrel boss from Donkey Kong Country 3.
Yeah.
We have to throw bugs in his mouth.
Yeah, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it's like you send him to the fire, you thought you beat him, and then all of a sudden he comes back for a moment and then just dies.
It's so trolly. I love that.
Yeah.
If you look at the magma at the bottom, you can see his air bubbles going across the screen because he falls in the acid over here and then he pops up over here. And if you look at the very bottom, you can see he's like swimming past the screen. It's very, very subtle and it's super easy to miss.
Yeah.
But it's just a cool little detail.
And I will say the Kraid fight was actually it's not hard, but it was fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the Ridley fight.
The
Ridley fight was
when
pretty
you
good.
get super missiles in a randomizer and beat him in like 4 hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get it even in a not randomizer. You can go in there with super missiles.
Also,
you have to actually.
Also, one of my favorite escape sequences in the game in the series.
Oh yeah.
With the ending, like just
escape.
Like when you basically like the ending where you see like all those clouds as you're getting the hell out of there, and then the whole planet explodes and you manage to get out of it. Very good. So
what's your
So for Fusion. So let's talk about Fusion for a bit. Going through the sectors, I like each and every one of the sectors. Each of them have a theme, like ice, plants, fire, water. And I beat the game again recently. And when it came out on NSO, I'm like, and I like the game. I feel like they did a lot of things to fix some of the issues that Super Metroid had, like the wall jumps and the running.
And they made the map track
Yes,
what you've collected.
exactly. That's actually really good. But it's just confined to just one like all these sectors, because like once you're done with a sector, you have to go back to the main base, and then you have to go to a different sector to get like whatever upgrades you need. But you also have to be careful because SAX is looking for you, and the moment you see it, you gotta run.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's very tense. Especially when you get to like some of the fights. There are 2 boss fights in the game I do not like.
They're hard.
The Yakuza spider boss.
That's the one I don't like.
I hate that boss, but the one that I hate the most is the Nightmare boss. Oh my
I was
god!
about to say Nightmare. Nightmare's the hardest boss for sure.
Yeah, Nightmare's the hardest boss, and Yakuza.
I can consistently do that first try. Yakuza, I get frustrated with.
Are you talking like round 1 or round 2 where you have to like, because you fight that thing twice, right?
Oh,
You
no, the one you fight twice. No, the one you fight twice is a security robot.
Oh, what? Sorry, which one are you talking about? Oh, are you talking about like the wasp one?
There was
Yakuza's the spider.
The giant spider.
Oh, the space jump one.
The space jump one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah, we have to
one.
shoot up.
You have to shoot up.
Shoot up, and then near the end of the
Right.
fight, it's just the head, and you have to like time it under.
Yes.
Right. When you said spider, the security robot's also a spider, so I got confused.
Yeah. The security robot. The first time around was not that bad. The second time around, yeah, it's a little more difficult because of the area that you were in. But
Well, I like that fight just because it uses one of the new mechanics, which is like the ceiling climb. That's cool.
Yeah.
And that was a brand new thing in Fusion.
yeah, I thought that was cool too, and also the fact that what I also like about Fusion is the fact that the missiles you could turn it into super missiles, and then you also could turn it into ice missiles, and you have ice diffusion in the end, which is actually pretty cool.
I like there's a lot to like about Fusion. The things that bother me the most, I find it's like one of the least replayable games, because after you've kind of absorbed all the dialogue the first time, the second time you just want to go.
Yeah, there's no way to skip it.
You can skip it.
You can't.
So
And there's a lot of it.
R.I.P.
in and out of every area, up and down every elevator.
I really needed an option to skip.
R.I.P. Speedrunners.
And I will say that also it's an annoying game to 100% because
Oh yeah.
you have to at a very unclear moment near the end of the game before you get locked into story. But after you get all the power-ups, you have to find the secret connections between the different sectors.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb.
I love the story itself and the setting. It's very, James Cameron Alien, right? It's a space horror movie essentially.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I also love how the fact that you are part Metroid ties into the gameplay and the story simultaneously.
Yeah.
You feel weak. You're weak to ice. Like so much cool stuff. But I just find, it really railroads you a lot of the time.
It does.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're used to the other Metroids, it can get annoying, and it really makes you hate that computer because he forces you to do everything. Like, you don't have a choice. It'd be cool if he told you what you could do, and then you could just say screw you and not do it.
Yeah.
But you can't. He literally locks the door behind
going
you.
all the way to another sector, and he just has it locked. I'm like, I went all the way here. You let me go all the way here, but you won't let me go further.
Well, it turns out there was actually a storyline reason for that in the end, where like
There is, yes.
Yeah.
it's not. It's
There's a storyline reason another M for
oh fuck that! No, fuck that! That was worse.
Good, yeah. It's
No.
narratively justified, but it's annoying gameplay to the player.
Yeah.
I find.
All right. So the next one after that for me is Metroid Zero Mission. That's number 3 for me. Because like unlike Fusion, Zero Mission, you don't have to worry too much about like all the dialogue. You don't really have to worry a lot about that in comparison. It's original Metroid to the core. They added some new things, like some new areas in Planet Zebes. all the quality of life changes from like every game that came after Metroid 1. And then it's like after you go to Torian, you go and fight against Mother Brain, destroy it, and then it's over. Or so you thought. Because they actually added a new sequence, and then like your suit gets taken away, and now you're Zeus Samus, because this is where Zeus Samus first appeared. And you have to get everything back. Because there's these space pirates you have to face against. What a game. Yo, what a game.
It brought back the light horror from Fusion, which became a recurring thing in 2D Metroid, starting with Fusion. I like that.
Yeah.
Which came first, I wonder? Was it Brawl or Zero Mission?
Brawl. No. So Zero Mission. Sorry, yeah. Zero Mission was 2004, and Brawl was 2008.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, it was Zero Mission that came first.
Cool.
But yeah. Great game. Absolutely like wonderful. So number 2 for me is Metroid Samus Returns, which I love everything about it. It's not a perfect game, but I still enjoy the game more than every other 2D Metroid before it. Being able to go through SR388 in a whole new way. It's 2.5D, unlike the other ones where it's just sprites. And then you have the music. They actually have more music. Some of it's new to the game, and others is just taken from other Metroid games. Like they took Magmore Cavern's theme directly, because it's actually the same composer as Super Metroid and the Prime games. And you have like a lot of new like power-ups that you have to get, where like you could actually give yourself armor, and there was some other stuff that they actually added too. Like I believe they had one. Because it's been a while since I played the game.
Are you talking about the Aeon abilities?
Yeah, the Aeon. Yeah, all these.
So there was the scan pulse. There was the lightning armor.
Yeah.
There was the rapid fire, like just ballistic beam weapon, and then there was the time slowing.
The time slowing, I actually enjoyed it, but at the same time, it can be a bit of a chore to use at some points. But I like the concept of it. It
was reverse speed boost, because what it did was let you go across platforms that deteriorated, right?
Yeah, so
which in the old game would just be you sped across it, but in this game you slow down time, but you keep moving at the same time.
You slow down everything except for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You slow down the world, but you keep going.
Yeah, I kind of hope that they could bring something like that back. Although Dread had something of its own, but I'll get to Dread in a moment. But
spoilers. Spoilers for your top one, not spoilers for Dread.
But that being said, one thing about this game, because like after you beat the final boss, you think it's over, because in the original game, once you beat that final boss, that's it. You get the baby Metroid, and then you escape. But you still get the baby Metroid. But there's just one big problem you would not have expected to see. A certain familiar face comes back that you wish you didn't want to see. Ridley's back.
Yeah.
And you have to fight him.
And you're right. I didn't want to see him.
I want to say that as much as I like adding extended stuff to these remakes, that one felt the most shoehorned in. I
didn't like it. I didn't like it.
Yeah,
so the fight itself is awesome. Gameplay wise, that is like one of the best Ridley fights.
Mm-hmm.
But atmosphere wise, I think they shit all over the original.
It felt like shoving Ridley in for the sake of shoving Ridley in, because Ridley has to be in everything in some format, and
it was their first effort to, and whether you see this as a good or bad thing, I don't know, to like bridge the gap between 2D and 3D Metroid, because Prime takes place, I believe, between 1 and 2.
Yes, all 3 Prime games.
Yeah, so this is supposed to be like meta Ridley going back to bioorganic Ridley.
Yeah.
And then like that weird,
they
adolescent phase. Proteus Ridley is what he's called.
Yeah.
They story-wise, it had a purpose story-wise, but it still felt shoehorned in because it was just like, how many ways can we have Ridley? Because we have Ridley, we can have him as a robot, we could have him as a ex-Parasite clone. Like, we just have to have Ridley in some format. I just kind of felt it killed the flow of the ending.
I was happy that he wasn't in Dread. I think what the best thing...
Same.
I think the best thing that extra ending does, aside from, again, a gameplay, mechanically fun boss fight, is it strengthens the bond between Samus and the baby. Because the baby jumps in and helps you, and Samus is like protecting it through the fight. Like, she's jumping and hugging it and tucking and rolling with it. Again, it doesn't really make sense considering she went to the planet to murder them all, and then on the last one, she's like, I'm not going to murder this one, where she had no problem murdering, every literal single other one on the planet, but that's besides the point. I thought it was cool that the baby helped you in the fight, and that Samus was protective over it.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
I liked the atmosphere of the original ending so much better. It was like peaceful, and there was like nice music, and you just walked along, the outer rim of SR388 in the night sky, and then you and the baby flew off, and it had this. And like you said earlier, Metroid 2 has some terrible, barely any music. That track is one that stuck with me. The ending track was like do 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 do.
Yep.
And it's just you and the baby going back. And then in this one, it's like dark green clouds and lightning, and a recharge station. Like,
Yep.
Okay, you're giving me a recharge station? Something tells me I'm not just flying home.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to sidetrack you, though. Shell, you're talking about your number 2 game.
But yeah, that was my number 2 game. So let's talk about my number 1 game.
Wonder what it is.
Well, it's no surprise to a lot of people. It's Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is easily my number 1 game. Yep.
I thought it was Other M.
I'm
just kidding.
Yeah, no. But I'm just gonna say right now that I'm authorized to talk about the fact that Metroid Dread is my favorite Metroid game.
Oh, good.
Although, honorable mention, even though I like all the games, I will say honorable mention is Prime 1. Prime 1 is my honorable mention. Everything about it is amazing. Like, I would say that it probably might depend on my mood, but if I ever replay the game again and I like it more than either Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, it will probably take one of those spots. But yeah, back to Dread. Dread is basically a game that I've waited so many years for. Because the thing about Metroid Dread is that there were rumors of it for so many years, and there were even reports that Nintendo was working on one for the DS. There were actually apparently 2 pitches of Metroid Dread that got canceled. One back in 2006, and then the other one, I believe, in 2008 or 2009. And
I remember those rumors.
And both of them, like, they were both going to be on the DS. Turns out the reason why they decided to cancel them is because they felt the hardware was not capable of making the Metroid game they wanted to make for Dread at the time. So they felt that the DS hardware would not have been good enough. Yet the Switch is the one that they decided to go with.
I think it might be the best choice. Dread looks beautiful.
It does. Like,
I forgot to mention the backgrounds. The backgrounds. Oh. When I started noticing them, it was so hard not to get just distracted because I want to look at them. They were just great.
The visual style just looked fantastic. They actually captured what they were going for with this particular Metroid game.
I like how Samus looks too.
Yeah,
it's unexplained, unfortunately. I wish she's healing from her fusion suit, but yeah, I love her new suit. It's awesome.
I guess they needed to give her a new suit because the fact that the fusion suit was mainly due to the fact that when she ended up getting that virus, and then she took the Metroid vaccine so that she can actually get cured from the virus. She does, however, she now possesses the weakness of the cold, more so than ever before. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she has this new suit, which looks amazing. I actually think it's probably the best that Samus has ever looked.
It's pretty good.
And And me personally, my favorite version of it is the orange one. Although the purple one's pretty good too. Like when you get the gravity suits.
I also like the baseline blue one. I love that one.
Yeah, the baseline blue one's actually good. It doesn't I'm glad that it's not like a yellowish color like the base Samus suit, the power suit. Like this new power suit actually looks beautiful.
It's very like Breath of the Wild Link, like that kind of bluish white mixture.
Yeah, where you have like this new look for a character that you've known for so many years.
Exactly.
And it's just a whole new take on what Metroid is like, that this is not a Metroid that takes place in between any others. No, this is the newest Metroid game. They said Metroid 5 because 1 was the original on NES, 2 was Return of Samus on Game Boy, 3 was Super Metroid, and 4 was Fusion, so 5 is Dread.
See, here's the crazy thing about that numbering scheme, is that I know we've joked about Other M, but they do acknowledge Other M in Dread. Yeah, like there is like when it shows like there's unlockables and it's for all of the 6 games, and it's like you said 1 through 5, and then Other M is there. So, but they still call this one Metroid 5. So
because they don't consider that part of the 2D arc.
But they do and they don't. So it's like they kind of want to have their cake and eat it too, right? Like it's Metroid 5. Other M didn't happen, but it did.
It canonically happened in the same way the Prime games happened, but it's just its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it happened after Super, I believe, is when Other M is supposed to take place.
It was after Super but before Fusion, whereas Dread is like sometime after Fusion. And
it's the most recent, latest game.
Yeah, which is great. That's what I wanted.
The gap, like if you don't count remakes and you don't count the Prime series or Other M or spin-offs, the gap between Fusion and Dread is a outstanding whopping 19 years.
I think it was even more. I think it was like 21 years, wasn't it? Like 2001,
2002.
21, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 19 because it was 2002. But yeah.
Oh, you're probably right.
But.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but the thing is with Dread, just like in Samus Returns, they use the same team that developed the game, Mercury Steam, who was best known for making the Castlevania Lords of Shadow games on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and then also the Mirror of Fate, which was also on the 3DS. And then, but people did not really like those games as much, other than the first Lords of Shadow, mainly because of how Konami was at the time. But then, under Nintendo, Mercury Steam has done very well with Metroid, back to back, both Samus Returns and now with Dread. But even better with Dread, like fixed a lot of the issues that Samus Returns had, plus add a lot of new content, like being able to, like, the way you could actually climb and cling on the walls. They kind of had something like the Aeon abilities, not to the same degree, but they had their own things.
Yeah, they had a few.
Like the camouflage, you could be able to, so that the enemies won't actually see you.
Dude, it has like my favorite ability ever, which is the flash shift. The
flash shift, yes.
That's like the best Aeon ability ever.
Yeah, honestly, great for speedrunners too. If you want to just get through,
it's so fun to use in boss fights.
Yeah,
honestly, I think one of the things that Dread does that is unfortunate is that it makes Samus Returns so much harder to play because like you're so used to how Dread feels that when you go back, you're like, I feel very stiff, very stiff, because you can tell it's like basically the same engine, or at least it feels that way.
It does
because it's. And like going back, I'm like, oh my god, I wish I was just playing Dread.
Yeah, but Dread.
Or at least I wish this controlled like Dread. I should.
Oh yeah, but in the case of Metroid Dread, for me, is the fact that a lot of the bosses were actually like very hard. Like Kraid, like it was nice seeing Kraid come back, but it was like a new version of Kraid, and it was a lot bigger than the one from Super Metroid as well. Then you have like all those bosses, like the one that was the most annoying to fight. There was this boss.
I know one.
were
There's
like
no water.
no, the water one was annoying enough. That one was annoying on its own, but there was one where
I want to predict what you're gonna say and guess it's askew.
is it? Askew. Are you talking about that giant bug?
The lightning bug.
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck that thing! But that's not what I'm referring to. That although
okay.
although that one could go fuck itself too.
Yes, I hate that one.
There was one where you had to memorize the patterns for jumping and everything. I forgot what's his name, but it's the one where fuck. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, it's experiment. The one we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
the one where you have to jump through the fan.
Oh, the one that I said is my favorite.
Yeah.
That one was probably it's not a terrible boss. It was just one of the most annoying to fight. But you also use that as a way to learn the pattern, how to actually fight this thing. And once you do, and once you beat it, it's very, very satisfying.
It's extremely satisfying to kill him with a shine spark.
Yes.
When that fan starts blowing at you, you can charge it up, and you have 2 seconds, 1 second even, to pull it off, but it can one-shot the boss. It's so awesome.
And then when you fight it the second time around, and the second, for example, the second playthrough that you would have, you'll know exactly what to do then, so you'll have the experience. But the first time around, just that feeling of it, it's okay, this thing is annoying. Let's figure out exactly what I need to do. And it took me a bit. I finally figured it out, and I beat him. And also those mini bosses with those giant eyeballs and all that.
Oh, the control units.
The control units, yeah, just
they look like
those
little
are-
baby mother brains.
They're barely even bosses.
they were.
Yeah, in the boss rush mode, they throw one in. I think
They-
maybe two.
It was just there. You just fight it, and then after.
Same with the Chozo warriors. You fought so many of them, and they barely changed their style.
Let's talk about the Emmys real quick. The Emmy.
Jeez, I can't believe we haven't talked about the Emmy.
Oh my god! The one I hated the most was the yellowish one.
The speed one.
That one.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Of all the Emmys, that was the worst one. Wow.
For me, it was probably the wave beam one, the purple one. Not because of it exactly, but because of the room you had to fight it in. There was very narrow spaces where you could actually melt his shield. You had to kind of do it in two different hops and kind of figure out a way. There was never a good long straightaway like a lot of the other Emmys had.
Yeah.
And they could shoot you through a wall.
Yeah.
Because it had the wave beam.
But the worst one was actually the one you don't even get to fight at all, because it dies before you even get to fight it. I believe it was I think it was the tomato colored one.
The powerbomb one.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was cool. But that was when spoiler story moment happens, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's not it was the worst in the sense that it didn't even do anything to you, but in terms of the story, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I
Why?
felt like the Emmys did what the SAX was trying to do, but a lot better.
Yeah.
Very much, because at the end of the day, everything with the SAX was scripted. It'll show up in these specific spots, and it'll behave in a very specific way. The Emmys had a large hunting zone, and they stalked you.
Yeah,
They stalk you.
and it felt like it. You felt hunted.
Yeah, the second you stepped in, you just knew they're searching for you. They're coming for you.
I have the image in my mind right now where the moment that they get you and you're trying to get out, and then all of a sudden they're about to kill you, and then just fades to black. Game over.
It was so brilliant of them that they made the timing change every single time you got caught. So you could never memorize okay, he caught me. 3, 2, 1, now. No. It's different every time.
Yeah.
Even if it's the same Emmy.
And I love that if you mistime the button, she just helplessly tries to hit at it.
Yeah, and
Because it really makes you feel it makes you feel like you are that helpless against it, unless you perfectly time this.
Yeah,
you can't do
none of
it.
your weapons do anything. You should be scared. And Adam even tells you, he's like, don't fuck with them, run.
They
get away.
They did me what I wanted the Breath of the Wild Guardians to do. Because the Guardians, when I learned I can just counter the things, they were no longer scary. These, the entire time, until you're ready to face it, You can't do anything.
And even when you get the Omega Cannons, it's still scary because they're slowly climbing towards you while you're slowly melting its face. You're like, do I have enough time? Do I have enough time?
Yeah, you decide whether to pull out. It goes,
yeah, exactly. It's so cool. Like
the game of chicken.
I love the image. I saw a lot of people really not liking them though. Like a lot of people thought they were way too hard, way too unforgiving. There was a lot of people, and I think it was a lot of people that were jumping into Metroid for the first time. So to have like one of the hardest, scariest enemies be your first experience with the game, I can see how that would be very jarring.
Yeah.
I agree.
And a hard barrier to enter. Like
it is the most challenging Metroid game, and partly because of that.
I think so. Yeah. You know what? I might put Samus Returns above it just because of. Because just how much damage things do in that game. Good God.
Oh, man.
It is very hard.
Yeah.
But I love in Dread 2 that every item is a button. You don't have to cycle through an inventory. Like, grapple beam is ZR, missiles are R, sliding is L, like Aeon abilities is this button. Like, everything is at your disposal right here. You don't need to change anything. That felt so great. And that was another gripe I had with Samus Returns. There's a lot of, like, touch screening to change my weapons and stuff. Man, there's so much to love about Dread. I do have one gripe with Dread.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate that I feel this way because if they had done this perfectly, I think it'd be an instant 10 out of 10 perfect game for me. I didn't like the music. The music is pretty mid. I like when I think about going back to listening to Metroid music, I couldn't name a Dread track I would go back and listen to. That wasn't just a remix of something from the original Metroids, you know? Like the intro story scene, which is the, you know, Metroid theme, Samus theme, that's great. When she's talking to, not Ravenbeak, oh god, what's his name? What's the other Chozo's name?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Something. Quiet Robe.
Yeah, Quiet Robe, yeah.
When she's talking to Quiet Robe, and it's playing that Lower Norfair music. Love that. But again, it's not. The only music I love was the non-original stuff. I just didn't like the music. I didn't vibe. Like with older Metroid games, like a new area that had a bop and tune, when you think of Phendrana Drifts, you not only think of the snow, but you think of the music. Same with Magmore Caverns. You don't think of you think of the magma and the music together, right?
Yeah.
When I think of a Metroid Dread area, I don't hear it. When I think of other Metroid areas, like you said, Overgrown Green Brainstar, when I see that area in my head, I hear music. But that's not the case with most of the areas in Dread, unfortunately.
For me, I don't mind it. Like, I feel like I didn't mind the music in the game with what they were going for, considering that, like, this one was a lot more tense. This was, to me, I felt that this was the most serious out of all the Metroid games because of the vibe that you would get. Everything is about, like, it listens to the name, Dread. It's dreadful. You have to get away from the Emmy. You have to... you basically learn more about Chozo in a sense, and especially fighting Ravenbeak. Ravenbeak, that boss fight. Yo, at first I was hating on him, but then the more I actually fought him, I'm like, okay, no, this guy really isn't as tough as he thinks he is. But but I love the part where he just, like, he lost one wing, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just taking this shit out. I don't need this anymore.
That was badass.
But
I was just like, holy shit, did he just do that? I'm intimidated.
The no-winged angel.
Well, and little did he know, that was the last thing about him that you could actually say was, like, something that was badass about him, because he was dead after that. He dies the moment that you beat him.
Are we to assume that Chozos all had wings? Like, is that a thing that we like?
Bird people.
They're bird people.
They are, but you've never seen. That was the first time I've ever seen them have wings. Like, even in all the pictures, the statues don't have wings. Like, I don't know. That was wild to me. I was like, oh my god, he has wings. Do they all have wings? Or it might be in his tribe, maybe, like the warrior tribe he was part of might have grown wings. I don't know. I hope we get more information.
Maybe we might get more from
I love that they've been still filling out Chozo lore, and I hope that future games do that more.
Yeah. Well, this is the first game with Chozos, which is insane as well.
And also, in this game...
with live Chozos.
Yeah, live shows.
Also, one last thing I want to mention. You wonder how many Metroids were there in this game?
One.
I was gonna say 0, but then I realized there actually was one.
There's one Metroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very important one.
If you don't know who it is, well, let's just say, I know we spoil a lot of it, but that's something I'm not spoiling.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't end with Ravenbeak. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay. But, yeah. TLDR, I fucking love Metroid Dread. So,
I will say Ravenbeak,
it's amazing.
hardest boss fight in the series, in my opinion. Very satisfying to beat.
Yeah.
Extremely. Yeah.
So,
I can't disagree with that.
all right. So the next one, I had it set to 20 to 30 minutes on talking about this, but this one is probably going to be brief anyway. How much has Metroid meant to you? Because this one we could spend some time with, but not too much time. But yeah. Tarvould?
Yeah, I think we've mostly kind of went over that already a ton. I love Metroid. I'm a huge Metroid fan. It's not perfect, and I don't see it as perfect, but it's one of my top 3 favorite series. It's definitely top 3 favorite series, next to probably Final Fantasy and Mega Man X.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. But like I said, it's got its dips and its highs, and the highs are high and the lows are low, but isn't that more interesting? Like, there's been this trend, like, this year, right, where people are saying, like, I'd rather play a 7 out of 10 than a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I feel like Metroid is a solid, as a series as a whole, it's like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. And that's fine, because it definitely has a few stinkers in there. But that doesn't matter. I'm still excited. I'm excited for Prime 4, even if I'm not, like, the biggest fan of the Prime games. I just got Dread. I got exactly what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Ever since Fusion. So I cannot complain that Prime 4 is coming out. And in fact, I have pretty high hopes for Prime 4. I maybe shouldn't, considering that the development of it is just... Every time I read something about it, I'm like, uh-oh.
We just got to know more about it. But yeah.
I know. Yeah, it means a lot to me, and I hope for more future. We seem to be in like a Metroid renaissance right now. Like, Nintendo is really showing they care. I will say, I feel the Prime Remastered announcement was a little too glossed over. Like, they squeaked that thing in a 2-minute segment in the Direct, and that was it. And I was like, oh god, okay, that's awesome. I love that. I love the shadow drop. But I didn't feel like there was much follow-up from Nintendo. They were like, oh crap, we didn't print enough? You guys actually wanted this? Guess we'll print more games. Like, I'm like, why are you kidding me? This was like your crown jewel game for the GameCube. That wasn't Resident Evil 4, which also getting remade this year.
And they've been really trying to make Metroid a bigger thing again. So, like,
that's
surprising.
Yeah, I know. It just seemed weird that there was just no hype machine for this.
Though, now I'm seeing more copies in the wild, like way more copies.
I had to go to 6 different stores to get mine. It was insane.
I ordered a copy of it last Sunday or Monday, and it said it wasn't going to arrive until like early to mid-April, and it came on Friday. So they're definitely getting copies.
Yeah.
So overall, Metroid means a lot to me. I definitely want to finish out my retrospective series on it, just so that I definitely, like, my hard goal, which is hard to commit to because we don't know when this is going to be, but I want to have everything done before Prime 4.
Right.
But again, we don't know when Prime 4 is, so if they shadow drop it next, I was gonna say, if they shadow drop this shit next month, I'm in trouble.
Well, we'll see.
I'll say too, I hope Prime 4 drops Phazon. I think I'm done with Phazon. And the way Prime 3 ended seemed like that's kind of what's happening, so I'm okay with that. But
yeah,
just like I'm kind of sick of Ridley, I'm kind of sick of Phazon. I want new stuff.
Okay. Anyways. All right, Shad.
So the Metroid series is that one series for me that I went into thinking I'd enjoy it, but not thinking I'd love it, and I loved it. Like, I heard so much about it. It didn't look like my type of game. It looked like a side scroller action game like Mega Man or Contra or something from screenshots I saw. And it's not like that. And it helped me understand a lot of my game tastes because I was able to look. It's probably in my top 5, and I was able to look at it in another one of my top 5, Zelda, and be like, what do I like about both of these games they have in common? And as I said, it's the progression thing, the items, and getting new abilities as the game goes on. And Metroid has been that for me. It's also been that franchise that I've always been a little nervous that it would just any game could be the last game. I don't feel like that way anymore, thankfully, after Dread.
Cries in F-Zero.
Yeah, no, there's games I like, Golden Sun, that I don't think I'm seeing again, that I love.
Yeah.
But like Dread is that franchise that every time I got a game, it was like a huge deal to me because I didn't. Once again, I didn't know if I'm going to get another one, and so especially after Prime 3 ended, and we didn't get more Prime games. Like, part of me wanted to love Other purely on the fact that it was another Metroid game. Federation Force, I'll still pretend it didn't happen, but like Samus Returns, that was, even with all its flaws, it was a big deal to me because it's just another reminder Metroid wasn't forgotten by Nintendo.
Yeah.
Oh man, Samus Returns, I went all out. I got the 3DS, I got the game, I got the amiibo. I was like, yeah!
Same
that
here.
was a big day.
Yeah,
because that was like a revival after a very long drought.
For Samus Returns, I got the collector's edition and the amiibo the same day.
Man, those 3DSs too, they go for like over $1,000 now. It's insane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I barely use it now. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, but hopefully that's a good idea of what Metroid means to me. It's like, it's a franchise that kind of helps define my taste in games, and it has opened up many other doors on like indie games that I love and stuff, because it pretty much built the Metroidvania trend, and from Axiom Verge to Hollow Knight, like I love anything that's kind of come from that.
Yeah.
Metroidvania as a term seems unfair to Metroid, because Castlevania took it on like in the PS1 era.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at like roguelikes, why aren't they just Metroid-likes?
And then apparently there was a term that was coined not too long ago called search action.
Yeah, search action.
Okay.
I heard
that does not roll off the tongue.
I heard it from someone from Nintendo. I don't remember who it was that said that, and then it just got picked up by a lot of other people after that.
Oh, are they avoiding using Metroidvania because it includes Castlevania? Like
that might be the reason why, because Nintendo doesn't own Castlevania. That's Konami. So, yeah, that's another thing. But
yeah, I've heard an entire push for the search action naming.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is to try to like not have specific franchise in the genre name, but we have like Souls likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And roguelike, I recently learned was based on a Atari game called Rogue. So
I think it's older than
it was
Atari. But
yeah, it might be. I just thought it was just a term, but no, it is based on an actual game. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, Souls-like. Which again, I don't even know what a Souls-like is. Just a hard action game? Like, what the hell? I don't know.
You lose all... Very hard action game. Generally, souls in some format are like a currency. And you lose them all if you die.
Yeah.
Hollow Knight is kind of a Souls-like, too.
It kind of is,
okay.
Yeah.
We're getting off topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
What about you, Shell? What does it mean to you?
What it means to me is the fact that Metroid has always been a series that whenever I get to play the games from start to finish, with the exception of Other M, because that game can go just away, please. I had a great time with a lot of the games. Yes, even with Metroid 1, even with Metroid 2, because these games also brought me experiences I never thought that I would have. And it actually led me to play more games that are like it. It led me... Go ahead.
I'm excited to see you play Prime 2.
Yes.
Because... And I wonder... do you plan on using, like, a guide or just going in blind?
I'm not sure yet, because I did go through a certain amount of games, so not all of it would be blind. Not all of it would be new to me, so we'll see how it goes. 3 would be the one that I'm interested in knowing how that's going to work for me.
I love 3.
Yeah. And for Metroid series as a whole, it means so much to me because of the fact that you have all these games. Some of it where they have story, but they don't put too much emphasis on the story. You just have to go through whichever planet you're in, go through all the areas, get everything you need, fight the final boss, you're good. I feel like Fusion was the one where they added way more story to it. Like 3 had some story, but 4 like had a lot, especially when like you have to go to the navigation rooms. You have to talk to the computer who is supposed to be Adam. You have to, and then also, like, having to wait for SAX to leave the area, or else the moment they see you, you gotta get the hell out of there.
It was an era where they really wanted to put a lot more story into Metroid, because Prime and Fusion were both, like, the first ones that really had a lot of story during the game.
Yeah.
Or that the story was the beginning and the end, and then, like, stuff like the comics.
Exactly.
Mm.
But then it's...
Which Zero Mission actually pulled a lot from. There was a lot of manga stuff in Zero Mission that directly tied to the manga, which was awesome. Yeah. Especially in the Japanese version of it. Or maybe it was Fusion. No, it was from linking Fusion and Zero Mission through a link cable. You got, like, the Japanese only, like, manga tiles, and they're so cool. It shows, like, Ridley destroying her home planets, and, like, Samus as, like a baby, and, like, as an adolescent teen living and training with the Chozo. It's so cool. I wish we got more of kind of that kind of stuff. Well, in Samus Returns, they had like they had the one tease at the end, and then they had like the unlockables in Dread, which was kind of like that style, where you saw like the history of the Chozo through these like kind of comic panels. I love that stuff.
Same.
I love that so much.
Really good.
Prime definitely feels like a more Western kind of developed game in that it's like gritty and it's like, first person shooter, and it's very grungy style, like less talk, more rock kind of.
Yeah.
Where there's just a lot of like extra reading if you want it. But I will always prefer the more in your face kind of manga style storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for me, like, just having these games, all the experiences, Metroid will always be high up in my like favorite series of all time. Like, it's up there with Zelda, it's up there with Mega Man, it's up there with like a lot of other like video games that I've played. But Metroid, like, I could just always go back to some of the older ones, but I do want to play more Dread. I'm planning to do a Dread mode stream at some point this year, so
damn,
that'll be interesting. But it means a lot to me because of the type of stories they can come up with, except for Other M, and also the fact that you have like all of these planets, all these atmospheres, just music, absolutely amazing.
I have to say something too. I love Samus as a character. Like, Samus as a character is one of the reasons why Metroid is so great. And it's crazy to me that, like, the fact that she's a woman is obviously awesome, but it's never been the reason she's awesome. She's just awesome because she's awesome, right?
Yeah, because with Metroid 1, not even revealing that until the end.
Exactly. And it was like, oh, cool. Like,
that was great because you don't tell the players ahead of time; they're not primed for anything.
And I find that
after they see her do badass feats, then they're like, "Oh, by the way, she's a woman."
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, hey, what? You thought this was a man? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, like, but anyway, like, so I already said my piece on what it meant to me. It means a whole lot, but the final section of this podcast tonight, we're gonna do some community questions. So,
nice.
So I've asked people on my Discord for some questions, and this is what I got. We actually got a lot of questions. We're gonna start off with Nova the Artist. They asked, what are some of your favorite pieces of music for the Metroid games and why? Tarvould, go first.
Oh man, there's so many. Oh man. I mean, I think Super Metroid has the best soundtrack. We've already mentioned the Overgrown Green, Lower Norfair. I like the Magmore Caverns Lower Norfair music, but I think it's been overplayed to the point where I'm like, okay, not hearing it. What are some other really, really good ones? I love the main theme of SR388, the dun, 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 dun. But to me, the most like Metroid theme, it's not even Samus's theme, like dun 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 dun, dun. I love that. But to me, the most Metroid theme is just Brinstar. Brinstar from Metroid 1. Dun, 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 dun. Like, and every version of Smash Bros. It's in, and like it. We're gonna bring this up again. Metroid Prime Pinball has like the most insane rock remix of this track in the very first like Pirate Frigate board. Oh my god! The second I booted up Pinball and I heard that, it's like ding, 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 ding.
I wonder if that's the one to use.
Like, oh my god!
Like I gotta listen to it too.
I think it is the one they use in Smash. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the most banger track in the Metroid series for me is the Metroid Pinball version of the Brinstar theme.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about you, Shad?
I probably have to agree with Brinstar. Brinstar does feel like the Metroid song more than even Samus's theme. Like when the first thing, if you say Metroid, the first song that pops in my head is that.
Oh, I should mention too. The other one is the like title screen. The
yes,
yeah, pretty iconic too.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one. But like honestly, having started with Prime as one of my first two, both Magmore Caverns and Finrana Drifts just really stick in my head a lot too.
Yeah,
Finrana is so good.
And the theme for the main music for Fusion, kind of just because I have some nostalgia for it, but I don't think Fusion necessarily has like the best soundtrack there.
No, it's good, but like for me, I feel like the soundtrack for Fusion is kind of like a step down from Super. It's still good.
Everything's a step down from Super.
It's still
Super is the peak, so no matter what direction you're going
it's
down.
Still good.
Fusion's music goes for kind of the tense, eerie atmosphere, and it does that fine.
Yeah. For me, like, there's a lot of great tracks from Super Metroid, like the Lower Norfair, which was used in Magmore Caverns and Metroid Prime, and also Samus Returns. It was in there too. I also enjoyed the fight against Ridley, as well as like when you're escaping.
Oh yeah.
That one. I also enjoyed the one where like you're in the overgrown like vegetation area. That's a good one. But there is a track that I do want to give a shout out to, and that's from Metroid 1. That's the Escape theme. And here's a fun fact about it. There's two versions of this theme. There's the Famicom version, and then there's the NES version. The Famicom version is actually very short, but the NES version, they extended it where you hear like a section where it goes do 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 do. Like it just added more to it, which was never in any other Metroid game after that. It's only in that one, and even in official remixes from Nintendo and Smash, they did not use that part. It was only in the United States version, because in the Famicom version, it just cuts after a certain time.
Derek mentioned the Space Pirate things when they appear in Criteria. Yeah, that's a good one where like
yes.
They reused that in Prime 3 when you go to... Well, I won't say it because Shell hasn't played it, but when you go to a specific area, they use that, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Another two very fast themes that are iconic and have never left and were from the beginning was loading your save file, like...
I wasn't even much considering that music as much as sound effect, but yeah, it's music.
And then the other one is... Wait. Other M doesn't have that one. Other M does not have that one. Other M's the only one to not have that.
Yeah.
I wonder if it went unused, because I'm wondering if the original plan was that you could find the stuff and then they decided to do the stupid, like, you have to be authorized to use this or that. So stupid. Anyway, so next question. This is from Izzy XD. We're fast approaching the 6th anniversary of the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, and it's over.
Oh my god!
And it's over 4 years since the development restart. Is there a possibility of Metroid Prime 4 releasing for the next gen Nintendo console? I'm gonna go first with this one. Maybe. We don't know. Like, what do you guys think?
I mean, I gotta say a solid maybe. Like, I don't necessarily think it will, but I don't.
Okay,
It's hard to predict, and if it's not ready until then,
it's hard to say yes, but it's also hard to say no.
If you're asking if it's not going to be on Switch and it's only going to be on the next one, then I think no. I think this is going to be on Switch.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a Breath of the Wild situation, like a simultaneous release on both. If it doesn't come out until the next Switch or whatever the hell we're getting.
Yeah.
However, I think it will be on Switch. I don't think it will be an exclusive to the next system. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I honestly agree with you guys on that.
Yeah,
so
that's a good prediction.
Mr. Ben asked a couple of questions. The first one is, what are you looking forward to regarding Prime 4? He also mentioned on Discord, how do you feel about the story is going to grow and evolve, considering what happens at the end of Metroid Prime 3? So
I want a new arc. I want like the Phazon wrapped up nicely at the end of 3.
And I think they're done with the Phazon. I think it is a new arc.
I hope so. So I think Dark Samus is just out of the picture, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Phazon being out of the picture. Yeah, like I said, I just want a new arc. Kind of like how the 2D Metroids has this new arc of, Samus having Metroid DNA. That's the new arc of the 2D ones. Because the first 3 games didn't have that, and now Fusion and Dread do.
What I was going to pitch to you guys is this. What if they decide that instead of taking place after 1 but before 2, what if it takes place after Fusion but before Dread, and they start adding lore to what takes place in between?
Ooh, so you want the Prime games to weave into the 2D games?
Yes. I mean,
that would be interesting. You'd have my attention then.
I mean, I don't know how confirmed it is, but I think it's kind of generally been assumed that Silex is going to be, because based off the ending of Prime 3, the Silex.
And not just that. He's in the ending of Federation Force as well.
That's true. Yeah.
But
so I think I'd be surprised if Silex doesn't tie into it, and I honestly would be surprised if it takes place. I think it'll just be after Prime 3. But I don't think it'll have anything to do with Phazon. The reason for it still being called Metroid Prime is just because it's the gameplay style. Metroid Prime itself has had nothing to do with the second and third Metroid Prime games.
Yeah.
Well, no, Dark Samus is Metroid Prime. So, she's always been there. But I like Shell's idea. However, I don't think they're going to do that. I would love for the 2D and Prime timeline to acknowledge each other a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they will. I think because they're just 2 totally different teams making them.
Yeah.
I don't think Sakamoto has any piece of Prime. I don't believe. But that would be cool. I would like to see that. But yeah, like I said, I just want a new arc. And you're right. I think Silex is definitely going to be a part of it. They've teased him twice now. He's definitely got to be in it.
Yeah.
But as far as him being the main antagonist, I don't see that happening. I see him being more of
I see him like a Boba Fett.
Yeah. But
yeah, or I was gonna say Ultros, from FF6, that kind of dealy.
But
which would be cool.
But in terms of what I'm looking forward to, the main thing I'm looking forward to is seeing exactly just how evolved the Metroid Prime gameplay is in comparison to the original trilogy from the Metroid Prime series. Where do they go? What's going to be something new that they add, and how the story is going to continue.
I want speed. I want it to be faster. I don't.
Hard to do with first person.
It is, but like there's stuff like Mirror's Edge, Titanfall 2, boomer shooters are all very fast.
They need to figure out how they're going to make it fast without making people feel like they have motion sickness. That's the thing.
It's true.
I get why they had to scale back, because people could easily get motion sickness. And believe me, there could be times in some shooters I played that I felt that way. But I know not everyone feels that way, but we'll see where it goes. We'll see. So let's move on to the next one. So the next one is, what's considering the recent remaster of Prime, do you feel we might or should get a remaster of any of the other Primes, or just Metro games in general? Which I do want Prime 2 and 3 remastered, especially on the Switch, and I would like to see some other games remastered, I know we all have our own grievances on Other M, but remaster it, because the fact that, though, if you're gonna remaster Other M, make the cuts
redo a lot,
and also please make the cutscenes skippable.
I don't think you remake Other M, because who's gonna buy that? I don't know if you could sell it. That's the problem.
But I think we should get remasters of the other 2 Prime games. I don't have high expectations, as you said, Tarvould. I kind of would have thought if they were going to do it, they'd do them all 3 at once. Like
Spyro or Crash.
Trilogy. Prime Trilogy HD, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really Nintendo thing to do, to piecemeal sell each one individually and try to get the money 3 times, but I don't think they're doing that.
Yeah.
I don't either. I think at best we'll get ports.
Yeah.
Maybe, they'll be in widescreen and have the new controls, but I think that's about it.
Yeah.
As far as remasters, remakes go, this series already has a lot. There's a lot of remasters and remakes in Metroid, and the series itself isn't even that big.
Honestly, I think it'd be cool to have a Super Metroid remake with the Dread style.
Yeah.
Because Super Metroid is currently the oldest 2D Metroid that has not had a remake of any kind. And at the very least, the map and the wall jumps can be improved on.
Yeah.
But if you're going to improve on it, you might as well go all out and make it a masterpiece like Dread, make it visually.
Yeah, all the quality of life stuff and everything. But fun fact, the Mercury's team, the original plan that they had was not Metroid 2 remake. They were originally going to remake Metroid Fusion. But Nintendo said, we like your idea, but we think it'd be better if you did Metroid 2 instead. And to be honest, Metroid 2 needed it way more than Fusion did.
I think Fusion needs it more than Super does. But I don't know how I feel about a Super Metroid remake. If it played like Dread, I could definitely get on board. And I think if I saw a Super Metroid remake in Dread style, I would want the fight with Mother Brain to be a fight. Because the only problem in Super Metroid is it's kind of a cutscene that you can push buttons in. That being a real full-blown fight would be wicked. And if they added another chunk onto it, like they kind of did with Zero Mission, I could get on board with that. That being said, I don't think it needs a remake. I don't know if Fusion needs one either. I would be fine with a re-release of Fusion with just a few quality of life upgrades. But like I said, I would prefer just new experiences.
Yeah.
There's so many remakes. We've got Metroid Prime. We've got Metroid Prime. We've got Metroid Prime Trilogy. We've got Metroid Prime Pinball. We got Metroid Prime Remastered. So there's 4 versions of Prime. There's 3 versions of Metroid 2 if we count AM2R, which you could not. It doesn't matter.
We'll get to AM2R in a moment.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's Zero Mission as well. There's a lot of remakes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if I had the choice between a new game or a remake, I'd obviously choose a new game.
Yeah.
But I also. A remake doesn't take as many resources, and so if they wanted to do a remake, I'd bite anything to increase player base.
Man, the Dread engine is built. Let's just use that one.
Yeah, use it. Just use it.
I want to see the Dread engine used more. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Just use it, and then you're good. All right. So, what's your favorite Metroid suit and or coloration? Metroid suit, the Dread suit. Dreadsuit.
How spoiler are we allowed to go?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I say the last dread suit?
Yeah, the third color. The
No,
No.
the fourth.
Oh, you talking about that one? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
If you know what we're talking about, you know what we're talking
If
about.
you know, you know.
I know.
And then if Nintendo announces another Metroid game where you don't play as Samus, but rather take on one of the roles of the Space Pirates which you played, absolutely. I want to see how they...
Space pirate? Whoa.
If you're a Space Pirate, interesting concept. See, unlike Federation Force where you have like these flunkies or whatever that you have to play as, this time, as a Space Pirate, that's a different take. I'll try it out. I'd like to see how that goes.
I was gonna say, depends. If it winds up like a Federation Force, I don't really want it, but
I don't know
you
how
could
I feel
do
about...
interesting things.
I think playing as a character other than Samus is okay. Now, a space pirate, I don't know if I'd be on board with, because like they're supposed to be seen as like just unforgivably evil, right? They like murder people, they steal
experimentation.
They do all the unforgivable shit. So
weaponry.
If you're trying to get me to sympathize with a space pirate, I don't know. However, I could easily play as one of the hunters from Hunters, like that, or even one of the hunters from Prime 3.
Yeah.
Spoilers, you might not be able to, but they were cool.
But
I mean, the space pirates, I would see it going one of two ways. Either you're an exceptional space pirate, like an exception to the rules, and you are fighting against the rest of the space pirates.
Yeah.
You're Finn from Star Wars.
Yeah, which would be really hard to pull off. If they think they could do that narratively, fine, but I think it'd be really hard to pull off to make that satisfying. And the only other way is you're playing as a villain, and that's also hard to pull off for different reasons, because a lot of people don't want to be the villain.
Here's the hardest thing to pull off at all: selling a Metroid game where you don't play as Samus. Like that's a hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
That was why Federation Force had issues right off the gate. Like,
see, if Federation Force had have come out like a month after Samus Returns, I think it would easily be picked up by a lot of people. But because it was the first thing we got after Other M, people were like, "What the hell?" Like, but. Yeah, I'm on board for a non-Samus Metroid game. I don't know how I feel about a space pirate, but like another hunter would be cool, or even like a Chozo warrior would be cool.
I was gonna say a prequel where you play as one of the Chozo that raised Samus.
Yeah, that'd
in her
be
younger
cool.
days. Like, you could do some cool stuff there.
Or even like playing a teenage Samus, getting her first suit, getting trained, playing through her, career in the Federation. Like, that'd be wicked. Maybe one of her first missions. I mean, I guess we had 0 mission, but a mission.
Yeah.
Metroid -1 mission.
Yeah. But again, we're going back to Samus at that point.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I guess that doesn't really answer the question.
All right, so next question is so let me read the next question. All right, so this one's from Destiny Decade. Do you believe that there should be a final mission for Metroid? Basically, one final story that would have Samus stop a threat that threatens the entire universe? That really depends on how they actually convey the whole story. It depends on what type of threat it is and how severe that threat is that will be big enough to destroy the entire universe. So it's really hard to say if I want to play something like that or not, but I would be intrigued depending on how they do it.
I'm not a fan of speaking in finites narratively. Like, I have no issues with a game that's intended to be the finale of a series as long as it leaves room open for the series to come back.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, are you suggesting that? Is the question suggesting that Samus dies, or is therefore unusable after this?
It says a final mission that has Samus, one final story, so it implies the final Metroid game.
Yeah.
And like, you're going to be hard pressed to tell me, do you want to end a franchise?
Yeah, that's the pretty thing. Like, or have an end point where every other story is a before point or an in between point, and
that
I guess
that just makes it more and more congested trying to fit everything in.
Yeah.
I think no. I think I'm not down for that idea. Unfortunately, like,
I'm fine with like them ending story arcs.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a sense of finality to Prime 3, for instance, like that really ended a like 3-4-ish game arc, right? Like that's cool. But if you're asking me if you want Metroid to have a dead endpoint where there is no more games after it, nah, I'm not into that.
Yeah. All right. The next one comes from Sohn. Do you consider Other M the black sheep of the series? If not, what is? And name a good thing about Other M. I don't even think that black sheep is the right term for Other M.
I think it's absolutely the right term for it. I wouldn't consider Federation Force a black sheep.
No, it's not.
A black sheep implies that there is still things about it that fans can enjoy. And honestly, name a good thing out Other M. I think the gameplay was enjoyable.
Well, the gameplay was actually pretty solid. I'll say that much. But
no, I don't agree. But
except the problem is that the missiles, the fact that you have to.
Oh my god.
Okay, so let me explain this real quick. You have to use you use the Wii remote sideways, and you have to turn the Wii remote and make it like into a certain you have to fucking go out of your way to like use the missiles, like turn the remote from this to this, like vertical, and guess what? Yeah. You can't move while you're shooting missiles. You can't move.
Yeah, I'm not defending controls.
You know what else you can't do? Shoot. You can't actually aim at the screen and shoot. You have to lock onto something. You can't just aim at a wall and shoot a missile. It won't let you. You have to lock onto a specific target they want you to shoot at in order to fire a missile. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I enjoyed the 2.5D kind of thing they went for.
I like how it looked. Yeah. A good thing about Other M, you know what? Here's a good thing, and I mentioned this while I played it. I have a lot of bad stuff to say about it, but this one's good. If you kill all the enemies in a room, you get a hint as to where the item is in the room. And I think that's cool. That is something that Metroid has always struggled to do, is incentivize you engaging in the combat. Like Metroid Prime, there's no reason to kill any enemy ever. It's so much easier in a Prime game to just run past them,
except for when it locks the doors.
Yeah,
exactly, and that's but that feels annoying. That doesn't feel like, oh, I'm incentivized to kill the enemies. It's I'm punished for not doing it, and that's different.
Yeah.
So Other M had that was cool. I liked that it incentivized you to engage in the combat. So that's a good thing about Other M. But yeah, it's definitely the black sheep.
Okay.
It did so much harm to Samus's character.
If I had to name one nice thing about Metroid Other M that wasn't already mentioned, the only nice thing that I would have to say is the fact that I'm glad that when I beat the game it was over, and that's it. No, but
super boss, actually, obscure boss from a previous
game. Okay. I'll be fair.
That ending sequence was cool.
Yeah, the ending sequence was cool. Okay, all right. I'll be serious about this one. Okay, I promise. All right.
Okay.
So, honestly, the music's not bad. The music of the game is not that bad. I think it's actually pretty nice.
I don't even remember it.
I like when you beat the game, and then you go to the title screen. It has like this piano solo. I actually like that. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
And I like Anthony. Anthony's cool.
Remember me? Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay. Next one is from Professor Icepick. Do you think the explosion of Metroidvanias on the indie scene is what inspired Nintendo to greenlight both Samus Returns and Metroid Dread? No. Nintendo. None of this. Nintendo never gets inspired by anyone or anything. They just do their own thing, and even if they are inspired by something, they claim that they're not.
You know what inspired Nintendo? Amiibo support.
I think Nintendo sees these sales and thinks that this will translate into their big AAA game sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the biggest indie games at the time weren't even Metroidvanias. The biggest indie games were like Meat Boy, Shovel Knight. Like, what was the biggest Metroidvania indie game that came out around Samus Returns?
Well, and you have to go back a few years because they'd be starting the development of Samus Returns at that point.
Yeah, to green light it at all.
There wasn't a ton. I think they had been kind of toying with new Metroid games for a while. It's hard for them to make a decision on a franchise that isn't Mario or Zelda.
All right, so
I think Nintendo probably looked at the Castlevania 3DS game and said, "Oh, that could be Metroid."
Maybe
Metroid that.
Maybe that, but to answer the question, to be fair, no. But I do think that I honestly do think that we've gotten a lot more Metroidvania indie games after Samus Returns.
And I will say,
I think it's backwards. Yeah.
If we want to slightly twist it, I think the explosion of Metroidvanias on the indie scene has helped Samus Returns, and especially Metroid Dread, in terms of sales. I think it has gotten more people interested in the genre.
Yeah. And Metroid Dread is now the best-selling game. I think it did pass 3 million, but Nintendo hasn't reported it, but I'm pretty sure it already did.
I don't think it inspired Nintendo, but I think it probably did help them, even whether they acknowledge that or not.
Yeah. So for Dragon, he asks, I want you guys to rank the 2D Metro games and explain your reasoning. This includes the originals and remakes. Well, I already did that. So
I'm working on it.
Okay. So I'll just say mine real quick. Dread. All right. So from best to worst. Okay. Of the ones I played, I'm not going to count Federation Force. I actually haven't really played that. Then again, I have not played Prime 3, so I can't really count that. I played Prime 2. I played halfway. Wasn't feeling it. But I don't feel it's fair to judge it yet until I finish
2D.
it.
He just said 2D.
Oh, sorry, 2D. Okay. Yeah. Oh, in 2D, yeah. Okay. In that case, all right. Then I played all the 2D games. Okay. So, Dread, Fusion, Super. No, sorry. Dread, Samus Returns. Because we're in cooling meetings. So Dread, Samus Returns, Zero Mission, Fusion, Super. I'm still debating Fusion and Super where they are placed. Then it's Return of Samus, and then the original Metroid. That's where I'm at.
I have to type mine out because I will forget.
Okay, well, mine, Dread is top, then Fusion, then, Samus Returns, then Zero Mission, then Super Metroid, then Original Metroid, and I guess Metroid 2 is at the bottom, but I have to be honest, I didn't play a lot of Metroid 2. I played it on Virtual Console, and got really frustrated because I got lost because I had no map.
Right.
Okay. I typed mine out. I said Zero Mission, Super Metroid, Dread, Fusion, 2, Samus Returns. I really didn't like it. And Metroid 1.
Okay. All right.
Did I miss any?
That's all the 2D. So.
Okay.
Though Super Justin Brothers asks, have you ever tried AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake? Not yet. I would like to. Honestly, I'll figure that out because I would like to play that at some point just to see how I feel about it in comparison to both the original game and Samus Returns. Tarvould?
I have, and I love it. It's amazing. It's really good. It's probably one of the best fan-made games out there.
Right.
I'm struggling to think of a better one, honestly.
Right.
It is really, really good, and there's only a couple problems I have with it. The Metroid fights can go a little long, and considering there's so many, anyways. But there's a lot of patches that keep getting added to it, or at least did get added to it. I know it got ripped down, but like, this is the internet. Nothing's dead forever.
Yeah.
The music is incredible, so good, so good, and it feels just like a big widescreen Zero Mission, and it's phenomenal. Yeah, it's really good.
What about you, Shad?
Leading up to Dread, I decided I wanted to replay all 4 2D Metroids in the couple months leading up to it, and so, but not every version of it, each one. So the original one I did Zero Mission, but for Metroid 2 I ended up deciding, you know what, I had never played AM2R, so I contacted some people in the Digital Bonfire and somebody was able to hook me up with AM2R, so that's when I played it leading up to Dread.
Yeah.
And I agree, it is phenomenal. It is a very different take on Metroid 2 than Samus Returns. And as so, it's kind of hard to compare. It feels more like a traditional Zelda. Or not Zelda, Metroid. A traditional Metroid game. Which is very much like something we haven't had since Fusion, and Fusion even wasn't quite as the same there, because, well, no, we had Zero Mission. But, like, Fusion was very linear, as we mentioned. This felt more like it scratched an itch that I didn't know I had for an older Metroid again.
Yeah.
And I do highly recommend any Metroid fan to play AM2R.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And it adds like a new section where you can actually find the research team that went missing. You can find their old ship and see like what happened when they landed there, because the whole reason Metroid 2 ever happened is because a research team went down, they lost contact. A rescue team went down, they lost contact. Samus went down.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of added stuff in there. It's amazing.
I think it has some new power-ups.
No, I was about to say it doesn't add any new power-ups, I don't think.
It doesn't?
No. Well, not new to Metroid 2, but not new to the series at all. It's all the standard stuff. I don't think there's a single new upgrade, no.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But it's just a ton of fun. And it plays, the controls are perfect.
Yeah.
So good.
I agree.
I'll play it someday. All right. So the last one's like more of a bonus one. How many steroids would a Metroidroid if a Metroid could roid steroids?
The big question is, how many are there?
There's Alpha Metroids, Beta Metroids.
No, how many steroids?
No, I know. Zeta Metroids, Omega Metroids. What about Giga Chad Metroids?
Giga Chads, yeah.
Gigatroids could roid
Gigatroid.
a lot of roids,
Yeah.
I think.
That was that question was for Mr. Ben.
I mean, I think Metroids will consume anything they can consume. So yeah, if they have access to steroids, they will absolutely consume them.
Yep.
That's kind of scary.
Send the Metroids to Muscle Beach.
Yep. All right. So we reached the point at the end of the podcast. So before we go, Mike, actually, hold up. T-Blade asked something real quick. Gigadroids or Gigachads?
Well, if a Metroid absorbs a Giga Chad, it's a Gigadroid. Or a Giga Metroid, I guess.
Yeah.
Giga Chadroid.
I'm picturing something that looks like Buzzwole from Pokemon. Do you know this Pokemon?
Oh, that Pokemon. Yeah.
That's what it would look like.
All right.
I didn't need that.
All right, then. Okay. So now we're actually at the point where we end the podcast. But first, before anything, Tarvould, where can we find you?
YouTube.com/TarvouldsQuest and Twitch.tv/TarvouldsQuest. Those are the main ones. I'm on Twitter, not all the time, but it's there. I begrudgingly use it.
Yep.
And Patreon.com/TarvouldsQuest. But I don't expect you to go there right away.
Yeah.
Just watch the videos, and if you feel like supporting me, that's a good place to go. But
yep,
that's it.
Yep. You also have you also do a lot of sprite art as well.
I do, but I actually closed the shop because it was taking up too much of my time. But I do commissions for friends and for anyone who's like recommended me by a friend. But I've closed my open ones for now.
Okay, sounds fair. Okay, all right. Shad, what about you? Where can we find you?
You can find me on twitch.tv/ShadJV. I'm also kind of on Twitter, mainly just use it to post when I'm going live and updates to my schedule, but that's Shad_JV. And also you can find me under ShadJV on YouTube, where I pretty much just upload my VODs but cut into chunks.
Yeah. So. Okay. All right. Well, you can find me on a lot of the socials at ShellshockPrime, and as always, like I stream every day, like from Monday to Thursdays with the occasional Sundays. But in regards to sharing with Shellshock, we do have more episodes planned for this season. We're going to be taking 2 weeks off because next week I'm going to be going to PAX East this weekend, and by the time I come back it'll be on Sunday night, so I don't think I'll be up for hosting a podcast then. And the week after that, I will not be available. So in 2 weeks, actually, I think it might be more closer to 3 weeks, actually.
Bye.